Hello and welcome. So this video is going to be all about Queen Caroline Matilda's affair. So Caroline Matilda was born on the 22nd of July 1751. She was the daughter of the Prince and Princess of Wales, Frederick and Augusta, and she was also the youngest sister of King George III of Great Britain. So in 1764 it was decided that there should be a marriage between England and Denmark. Now one of Caroline Matilda's sisters was first put forward to be the wife of Crown Prince Christian of Denmark, but in the end it was decided that Caroline Matilda would become his wife, so this was put into motion. In 1766, Frederick V of Denmark, Christian's father, died, and the 17-year-old Crown Prince became Christian VII. The marriage was celebrated by proxy on the 1st of October 1766, and then 2 days later Caroline Matilda left for Denmark. On the 8th of November, an in-person second wedding took place at the Royal Chapel in Christiansborg Palace in Copenhagen. On the 1st of May 1767, they were crowned King and Queen of Denmark and Norway. So Christian actually had some mental health issues, and he was not actually too happy about marrying Caroline Matilda. He did not like her, and he was in absolutely no hurry to consummate the marriage. So his court had actually forced him to marry her because they believed that the marriage would improve his mental health. And it was also rumoured that he could be gay, so that would have been another reason why they wanted him to marry, so he could have some heirs. But although there were rumours saying that he could possibly be gay, Christian also had some mistresses, and he would often visit courtesans, so he could have been bi and just not like his wife. So Caroline Matilda's friend that she made over in Denmark, Louise von Plessen, didn't actually like Christian, so she actually sought to keep Caroline Matilda away from him. But she also told Caroline Matilda to pretend not to be available when the king was showing some inkling to have the sex that they hadn't had yet, because she said this would then make him more eager to want to have sex with Caroline Matilda. But this actually had the opposite effect, because Christian hated his wife, so he was more than happy to never have sex with her. In the end, Christian had to be persuaded to sleep with Caroline Matilda by his old tutor, just so that he could have some heirs. So Christian did as he was told and slept with Caroline Matilda, and she gave birth to a son, Frederick, who was born on the 28th of January 1768. So Caroline Matilda was actually really unhappy at the Danish court, and this was only made worse when one of her husband's friends managed to get Louise exiled from the court. So in May 1768, Christian decided to go on a little tour around Europe. During this time, back in Denmark, rumours began to go around saying that Caroline Matilda was having an affair with an actor called Latour. Now, there was an actor called Latour in the Danish court at the time, but he was not the lover of Caroline Matilda. He was actually the lover of one of her ladies-in-waiting, Elizabeth von Iben. But it was known that Latour would often receive gifts from a higher hand, and it was said that when Latour visited Elizabeth, he was actually going to visit Caroline Matilda. This was, of course, all completely untrue, but when Christian returned from his tour, he learned about it and thought there might have been some sort of truth in it, or he just wanted the rumour to die a death and never come back, because he exiled Latour from the country. So when Christian returned from his tour in 1769, he brought with him Johann Friedrich Struensee, who was now a royal physician. They had met while the king was on tour, and apparently Johann had managed to help him when he was having one of his mental health episodes. Also, while Christian was on tour, his mental health had begun to deteriorate, so Johann became a confidant for him. But Johann's methods for helping Christian with his mental health seem really strange to us today. He encouraged Christian to take Brigitte Sophie Gabel as his mistress, as Johann believed that a relationship with an intelligent woman would help Christian with his mental health. This, of course, completely failed because it is not true. Having sex with someone really intelligent will not help your mental health. But then Johann began to encourage Christian to show some attention to his wife, which Christian actually did by throwing Caroline a 3-day birthday party. So Caroline Matilda knew that Johann was behind her husband suddenly being really nice to her. So she was really, really grateful to him. So grateful that in 1770 they became lovers. Christian's mental health at this time had deteriorated loads. So he was actually entrusting affairs of the state to Johann, even though he was just his doctor. Caroline Matilda would also help with these affairs of state, and she and Johann would work together to push their own policies and plans onto Christian. Basically, they took over how to run the country and was basically telling Christian how to run the country and what to do. In 1771, Caroline Matilda gave birth to a daughter. She was called Louise, and it was believed that the father of Louise was Johann. Now, the people of the court by this time began to feel sorry for Christian because his wife was so obviously having an affair, and they also really hated Johann for how much control he actually had over the king and over the running of the country, and they also didn't really like Caroline Matilda that much either. On the 17th of January 1772, while a masked ball was in full swing, Christian's stepmother and some other people entered his room via a secret door. They forced him to sign an arrest warrant for Johann, Caroline Matilda, and a councillor called Count Brandt. They were all arrested, and Caroline Matilda and little Louise were imprisoned at Kronberg. Johann was imprisoned somewhere else. On the 20th of February 1772, Johann's interrogation began. He was asked about his relationship with the Queen. Now, at first, he wouldn't say anything and didn't admit to anything, but later on, he did and blamed it all on Caroline Matilda. Caroline Matilda's staff were also questioned, and their answers were somewhat incriminating. Caroline Matilda was then interrogated. Now, they presented her with a signed confession from Johann, saying that they had had an affair. So then she signed a confession saying that they did have an affair, but it was basically all Johann's fault. Now, it is possible that Caroline Matilda was manipulated into signing this confession. The case went to court, and on the 18th of April, Caroline Matilda was told that her and Christian were no longer married, and that her name was to be banned from being said in all church services. Johann was executed on the 28th of April. So when Caroline Matilda's brother, King George III of Great Britain, had heard about what was happening to his sister, he immediately sent some people over there to Denmark to negotiate her release, but it didn't go too well. He then sent a squadron to Denmark, but just as they arrived in Denmark, the Danish government said that they would release Caroline Matilda from prison. So Caroline Matilda was now not in prison in Denmark, but she couldn't go back to Great Britain because people were actually really scandalised with what she had done, and Queen Charlotte didn't want to accept her in the court. So it had to be decided about where she was going to actually live. In the end, it was decided that Caroline Matilda was to live in Hanover in Celle Castle. Her children, Frederick and Louise, had to remain in Copenhagen, and she never saw them again. So Caroline Matilda lived the rest of her life in Hanover, but she did not actually live a long life. She died of scarlet fever on the 10th of May 1775. So this was a little video about Caroline Matilda's affair. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.